At the beginning of the story, an old man offers the main character a chance to press a button which would allow him to train for 100 million years in a different dimension. At first the main character did not believe it, but he thought of doing it just to make the old man stop his delusional rumbling. But as he did so, he realized that he made a huge mistake. For some context leading up to this moment, we see the main character training in the school grounds of the prestigious Swordcraft Academy. As he was doing so, a few bullies noticed him and decided to tease him for being a rejected swordsman. They proceed to harass him and kick him out, telling him he is not worthy of training there. Alan Rodal, the main character, has always loved swordcraft, but he never had any talent for it, hence why the nickname of a reject swordsman. When he was a kid, his mother was very supportive of his dream. She worked hard and saved money to enroll him into this prestigious academy. They were so poor that at one point, she would have to cut money from her own food to save for him, which is why Alan wants to make it up to her and repay her for everything she has done for him. So, Alan goes to the secluded hallway to practice his sword swings. As he gets going, a popular guy shows up with two girls, and once again, starts insulting Alan for his incompetence. Alan recognizes this guy as Dodriel Barton, a prodigy. Dodriel tells Alan that he should probably stop doing swing repetitions, as they are not going to help him. Instead, he should probably quit the academy and get a job to do himself and his parents a favor. Alan, as always, tries to not pay much attention to what he says and goes back to his training. However, this time the guy takes it one step further and says that he feels bad for his parents, who gave birth to such an untalented kid. But he really crosses the line when he says that Alan's parents must be just as useless as him for them to give birth to him. Angered, Alan immediately asks him to take back his word. He exclaims how his mother is a strong woman who raised him by herself and gave him the best possible life she could. Hearing this, Dodriel says that it makes him feel even worse for her, because it indicates that she didn't hold back in trying to give him the best upbringing, but unfortunately, one's offspring can only be trash if they are trash themselves. This was the final straw for Alan, who immediately charged at Dodriel with his sword, looking to attack him. However, Dodriel isn't even bothered in the slightest by this, and easily stops Alan with a well-placed kick to the gut. Alan is knocked down and left gasping for breath, as Dodriel makes fun of him for not being able to dodge such a basic kick. Alan then proceeds to challenge Dodriel to a proper duel, and says that if he wins the duel, Dodriel would have to apologize and take his words back. Dodriel likes the idea, and says that he will go on his knees and eat his words if he loses. But if Alan loses, he needs to leave the academy. Alan is baffled by this, but Dodriel thinks it is only fair to have equal stakes on both sides. Alan doesn't think the stakes are equal, but Dodriel tells him that him leaving the academy will be inconsequential, because he is inconsequential himself. This hits Alan hard, who then spends the bulk of his time training, doing sword swings. He doesn't go to coaching academies, so training is all he could do. However, Dodriel is a much stronger opponent who can even defeat upperclassmen. This makes him question himself, but he decides to ignore it and keep practicing. After a while, the sword slips out of his hands, and this breaks Alan. No matter how much he was trying, he wasn't getting any good at it. Just then, an old man approaches Alan and asks him what is wrong. He tells him that sharing a problem with someone can make him feel better. Alan thinks it makes sense and tells the man about the whole thing in detail. The old man then tells Alan that he can actually help him. The man then proceeds to show him a button, which would send him to a different dimension to train for 100 million years. The dimension will give him a nice house and all the equipment. He will also get access to whatever food he wants to get stronger. However, Alan doesn't pay attention to him and goes back to training. The old man keeps persuading him to press the button. At one point, he emotionally blackmails him into pushing it for the old man, who doesn't have much long to live. So, to shut the man up, Alan decides to press the button. However, it is only later that he will realize how much of a mistake that was. After pressing the button, he is immediately transferred to another dimension. At first, he was shocked and left wondering if it was true. But it was really a different dimension, as there was no sun, no shadows, yet it was bright outside. He also felt happy knowing he has 100 million years to train, because that will definitely be enough to outdo Dodriel. He starts training, and after a while, realizes that a lot of time has passed. So he goes inside the house he was given, and was left shocked by how big it was, and it was all for him to use. He eats some fresh fruits from the magic pantry inside, before going to the extra large tub to take a bath. After that, he sleeps on his comfy bed, vowing to become a top swordsman during his time here. 10 years later, he has now become quite good at swordcraft, and finally got the hang of how things work. He can now put pressure, and use each of his body parts appropriately to add to his skills. His swordsmanship was becoming optimized. 100 years later, he was now beginning to develop his own moves, and he felt like an institution within himself through the years of training. 1,000 years later, training was still going good, but he wasn't feeling very well on a personal level. He started to think about how his mom was doing, and felt loneliness for the first time there. 2,000 years later, he started to lose his sense of taste, as all food, no matter how good, tasted the same, and it was unbearable. 5,000 years later, he started questioning himself if all this hard work is for nothing, and if all of this is a dream. All the doubts crept in, but he somehow stopped himself from getting drowned by them. 7,000 years later, his mental pressure was at peak. He wondered why he was even doing this in the first place. What was the reason? And it all made him want to quit swordsmanship as a whole. However, he stopped himself as he remembered the ugly words of Dodriel Barton, so he knows that he needs to get stronger and beat him. 10,000 years later, he had now developed a special technique, which let him fight himself. He trained very hard in those inconclusive battles, making him stronger. Yet he felt he wasn't doing enough to get better than Dodriel, who is a prodigy. He uses the Autumn Rain School of Swordsmanship, a very popular and well sought out technique, and Dodriel is one of the best at it. So, he wanted to learn something special before his time ran out. As he kept training and training, eventually the time ran out. Alan was left with a dissatisfactory taste though, as he felt that he didn't develop that special something he needed to beat Dodriel. Just like that, Alan was back in his world, the same time, the same night. The old man asks Alan if he enjoyed training for 100 million years inside the dimension, to which Alan said he isn't sure. The old man tells him that he needs not to worry, as the stuff he learned there will translate well into this real world as well. So he asks Alan to take a few swings of his swords. Alan obliges, and upon touching the sword, he feels like he has a deeper connection to it now than before. He brings it out and takes a swing. It was so quick and so powerful that it caused a huge blow of wind to come and go. Excited, Alan felt good, but he still wasn't sure if he could beat Dodriel. After all, the Autumn Rain style is a competent style, developed over lifetimes. So, Dodriel has a lot of special moves and he has no significant ones, which is why he asks the old man if he can press the button again and train for another 100 million years. The old man tells him he can press it as many times as he wishes to. Alan hears this and presses it again, going off to that dimension. After 100 million more years, he comes back and dozes off. Once he is up, he wonders what year, date, and time it was, but he is greeted by Miss Paula, the woman who takes care of him. She asked him what he was doing sleeping outside, to which Alan says he forgot and had a dream. Following this, she asks him to come inside and eat breakfast. Alan obliges, as he wonders if what he saw was just a dream. This is when he sees the million-year training button, but brushes it off as nothing and a part of his dream. Later, as he is eating breakfast, Miss Paula says that it is quite late, and wonders if he will reach school in time. Alan remembers that his duel with Alan is at 9 a.m., so he immediately runs off to school, knowing he will definitely be late. So, when he arrives at school, he apologizes to the receptionist for being late. But the receptionist tells him that he is in fact early, and that it is only 8 a.m. This was quite strange for Alan, but he was willing to accept it and move forward. After a while, he makes his way to the battle arena gate, as he was about to step into a huge duel. However, Alan is stunned when he sees a huge crowd inside the arena, calling him stuff and telling Dodriel to whoop him. Dodriel praises Alan for bothering to show up, as he didn't even expect that much from him. Overwhelmed by the rabid crowd, Alan asked Dodriel why there was a crowd in the first place. Cunning as always, Dodriel says that it must have been because the rumors of their fight had gotten out. Alan knows full well that it was Dodriel himself who did this. After this, A teacher came in to officiate the duel, and Alan was looking to complain to him about the crowd creating an unfair environment. But the teacher didn't even listen and told them to get ready for the fight. Dodriel promises to torment Alan until he begs for mercy, while Alan tells him to not take him lightly. However, deep down, Alan felt scared because he knows that he is no match for Dodriel. However, he can't back down now and must fight him like a man. So, Alan musters up the courage, and he is surrounded by a whole different aura. The aura was so powerful that it startled Dodriel, who asked Alan what he was up to. Alan was confused, as he was expecting Dodriel to attack. The crowd were also pushing Dodriel to knock Alan out, so he moved forward to attack. However, Alan saw his movements in slow motion. It made him wonder if Dodriel was doing this on purpose to mock him. Alan easily dodges the attacks that Dodriel charged in with. This left Dodriel shocked, as he didn't expect this. However, he vows to finish it all with his next attack, which is going to be 3 times faster. Dodriel leads in again, but Alan only feels like the attack was slightly quicker but still slow. Annoyed, he snaps and attacks Dodriel for disrespecting him as an opponent. However, the strike from Alan was so powerful that it sent Dodriel flying back meters. Alan was shocked, as his singular strike had registered as 7 slashes, and the referee declared him the victor. This was shocking, but Alan finally realized that the millions of years of training he endured wasn't just a dream. A few days after the duel with Dodriel, Alan was once again training, and things have changed for sure. People saw him training, but now they were referring to him as a cheater, but didn't want to mess with him. The bullying had gotten worse, as people were accusing him of using dirty tricks to beat Dodriel for some reason. Some of them even throw a bottle at him, but Alan easily deflects it back at them. Now, he is strong enough to deal with any physical bullying. However, they've been bad-mouthing him a lot behind his back. Alan thinks the him from several hundred million of years ago would definitely be bothered by this, but the current him is not. As he makes his way out of the academy, he sees a mother-son duo, which reminds him of his own mother. After all, his mother raised him alone after his father passed away in an epidemic. He misses her, so decides to go see her when he has a break. He also plans on buying her some gifts, as going empty-handed would look bad. However, upon checking his wallet, he realizes that he barely has any money. So he decides to get a part-time job. At home, Miss Paula says that she has exactly what he is looking for, a gig that will earn him money. She gives him an invitational leaflet to the swordsmanship tournament that is to be held in Orvis City. It is an elite tournament, and prizes are really worth it. She thinks that a man should earn through his strength, and that Alan will do well here. Alan is a bit overwhelmed, but he thinks that he will at least be able to perform well and get some money, even if winning is out of the question. But the catch was that the entry fee for the tournament was $1,000. Miss Paula tells him to rest assured, as she is willing to help him out and let him put on a fight. Alan thanks her for the help, to which Miss Paula tells him to pay her back with a brilliant showing in the tournament. Alan promises to win some prize for her at the tournament. On the day of the tournament, a nervous Alan arrives at Orvis City, and his nervousness is turned up a notch when he meets the other participants of the tournament. They're all giants who look like they're pissed off. He understands that there is a huge power gap. One of them starts picking on Alan, calling him a brat, and mocking him for bringing a sword to the event and wanting to potentially join. Others mock him by saying there is no way such a scrawny kid would be looking to join the tournament. Alan was understandably annoyed by this, but it pisses off the giant even more, who asks Alan if he is showing defiance. Alan wanted to respond properly, but he understands that causing a ruckus outside would cause him to get disqualified from the tournament, and he doesn't want to make Miss Paula disappointed in him. So he just apologizes promptly and moves away. Alan then goes over to the registration booth. There, the girl handling the business asks for his name and the school of swordsmanship he practices. Alan tells his name to her, but he didn't really have a school, so he just told her that he is self-trained. This draws out laughter from the girl, but she registers him anyway. Alan feels bad because he knows that only losers aren't let into specific style schools. Despite this, he goes inside the waiting room, wanting to get a few swings in to warm up. Just then, Alan sees a pretty girl with a sword pass him by. Alan was impressed by her beauty and wondered if the girl would participate as well. Meanwhile, a popular woman arrives at the venue in disguise to watch the tournament. But she is recognized by a guard and subsequently taken for special treatment. After this, the mayor of Orvis is brought on stage to deliver a speech. He thanks everyone for participating, but he keeps the formalities short and hypes up the crowd and participants with a violent speech, wanting to see people beating each other's brains out. After this, the mayor attends to the woman from earlier, Rhea Lastnote, the chairwoman of the Thousand Blade School of Swordsmanship. It is one of the 5 elite schools of swordscraft, and he apologizes to her for not giving her the proper care. Rhea, who doesn't like attention, tells him that he didn't need to prepare a makeshift VIP seat for him, but he apologizes further for not giving her better care. But it is expected in her position, as the 5 elite schools of swordcraft do hold a lot of influence, and she is a chairwoman of one of them. But she still tells the mayor to not go overboard, as she is only here to spectate. The mayor guesses she is here to watch last year's winner, the bounty hunter, Rose Valencia. It is the girl Alan saw earlier, and Rhea is here to scout her. She is also hopeful of finding a few diamonds in the rough. Following this, Fina, the swordscraft idol, comes out as the host and announces the rules of the tournament. 1 versus 1 duels, the only way to win is through incapacitating one's opponent or knocking them out of bounds. Fatal attacks are prohibited, and breaking this rule would result in immediate disqualification. Alan hears this and thinks the rules are quite straightforward. Fina then draws the first duel of the tournament. The names she draws are of Babel Domingo and Alan Rodal. It's the guy Alan had an altercation with earlier, and Alan wasn't pleased by that. He had hoped to wait a few more rounds before fighting, while Babel is shocked that the skinny kid from earlier is in the tournament for real. Fina then announces details about the two. Babel follows the style of Dodriel, one of the 5 elite schools, and is known to devastate his opponents with his sword. Meanwhile, Alan is self-taught. This makes the arena erupt in laughter. They envy Babel for getting such an easy draw, while Babel thinks that fighting a kid who is self-taught is like bullying. Alan gets pissed off, but he can't deny that they're telling the truth. He might have improved, but that's only compared to his much weaker academy. Despite this, it is an opportunity to fight a stronger person, so he wants to make use of it. Fina then announces the start of the duel. They both get ready. Alan, ready to check out his training from the different dimensions, decides to attack first. He uses a skill he calls the Flying Shadow and sees how Babel reacts. However, the strike causes a gust of wind to fly straight at Babel and knock him out of bounds. This shocks everyone, including Rhea Lastnote. Meanwhile, Rose Valencia watched in amusement. Just like that, Alan had shocked everyone and picked up a monumental victory. He himself didn't know how it happened, as his intentions were to only keep Babel in check. He understands that maybe he has indeed gotten a lot stronger than he thought. This was only the beginning, as he also went on to dominate his next opponents, amassing a ridiculous 5 victories in a row. It all led to the most anticipated bout of the tournament, the final. On one side, it was the reigning champion, Rose Valencia. She is known as the sole inheritor of the secret swordcraft school of Cherry Blossom. She sent through all the rounds without even getting a scratch. Her opponent was Alan, who had now won over everyone in the crowd, and despite being self-taught, his skills and confidence made it clear that the match was going to be competitive. Alan was a bit flustered to have the crowd behind him for once, but he immediately switched to serious mode. He heard of Rose Valencia before. She is a well-known master of the swordcraft, who has won several tournaments. She is also known for taking down criminals with bounties on their heads. However, he can't help but look at her body, as her outfit was quite revealing. Despite this, he focuses on the fact that she has used a counterattacking style up until now. So, he knows that he can't attack without giving thought. Just like that, the final match begins. Both combatants square up each other, waiting for the other to make a move. Suddenly, Rose fires off with a sudden attack on Alan, who is shocked by how quick she is. But it isn't enough to take him down, so he easily blocks her attack. Alan then finds an opening in her defense and tries to exploit that. His strike is only narrowly avoided by Rose, who then, from a compromising position, hits a special move out of nowhere. Startled, Alan still manages to block, but is a bit shaken up by her prowess. The battle then continues on, but as time passes, the crowd starts to notice that Alan is making Rose look like an amateur, tiring her out with ease. Tired, Rose eventually takes a breather and asks Alan where he learned swordcraft from. Alan, embarrassed, says that he is truly self-taught. However, Rose doesn't believe him, as his skills look like they've been developed over generations. Alan understands that, as he did spam the 100 million year button that night and racked up over 1 billion years worth of training. Rose then says that with her next blow, this match will be over. She then prepares and launches a special move of the cherry blossom style, an 8-sided slash. The strike is indeed powerful, and Rose is convinced that she has won. However, this wasn't something Alan was afraid of. He analyzes that there were gaps between her 8 strikes, so to block it, he uses his own 8-slash attack, which has no gaps. Using that, he easily blocks her, and with her guard open, he lands a decisive slash on her. This drops Rose and the match ends. Against all odds, Alan Rodal, a self-taught 15-year-old boy, is declared the winner of the sword fighting tournament. After the win, even the giants who picked on him before the tournament started accepted that he was great. So they started throwing Alan up in the air to celebrate. A few days after his monumental victory, Alan was called into the principal's office. Alan thought it had to do with the rumors that he used an illegal skill or weapon to beat Dodriel, but when he walked in, the principal was smiling. He told Alan to sit down and even offered him sweets. Confused, Alan asks the teacher why he was called there. The principal tells him that he has made the school proud by getting a scholarship invitation from the Thousand Blades Academy. He doesn't know why they offered Alan a scholarship, but for a small academy like them to send a student to one of the 5 elite schools is an achievement by itself. The homeroom teacher chimes in, saying he had always believed that Alan would make it big, and offered him to deliver a speech at the graduation ceremony. Alan saw their hypocrite sides, as these were the same people who had once refused to listen to his reports of being bullied. But now that he has been offered a scholarship by Thousand Blades, they are treating him like a hero. After this, Alan tells them that he needs time to think about making a decision before he actually does so. This stuns the teachers, as they ask him if he has gone crazy, because there is nothing to think about something that is obvious. However, Alan makes it clear that he has thought about becoming a holy knight or a witchblade, so this is something he needs time to think about, and will only make a decision once he consults his mother. They kept pestering him to take the offer right away, but Alan stood firm on his call. After this, Alan goes home and packs up to leave. He says bye to Ms. Paula before going back to his village. He runs through the forests for 3 hours straight, and with his newly gained strength and stamina, he reaches his village with relative ease. Once there, he is recognized by his village folk, who tell him that he has gotten a lot bigger. After this, Alan goes back home, where his mother is surprised to see him, and they embrace. She immediately goes to prepare dinner for him, while Alan decides to help her out. As they prepared dinner, Alan caught up with her and told her about everything from his school life to winning the swordcraft tournament. However, he still didn't tell her about the Thousand Blades scholarship, so he decides to tell her that next. Alan tells her about it and asks whether he should pick that, become a holy knight or a witchblade. His mother thinks that it is not at all a hard decision, because she knows he wants to go to Thousand Blades. Alan is shocked by this, but his mother says that she just used her mother's intuition. It isn't very hard to guess because he liked swordcraft since he was a little kid. She tells him to do as he wants and live his life without worrying about her. As his mother, she only wants him to be happy and live a longer and better life than her. After they have an emotional moment together, Alan's mother tells him to dig in, because she made his favorite stew for him. Excited, Alan goes to take a bath, and his mother, back to the kitchen. However, the old man, who gave Alan the 100 million year button, was eating in Alan's stead. Alan's mother notices his aura, and quickly deduces that the spell she put on has faded, so the time hermit has appeared. Meanwhile, Alan was enjoying his bath, but he also noticed that his mother has aged up a lot, so he needs to be quick and become a great swordsman. Outside, the time hermit was talking about how Alan's mother hid the spell well, and that finding it made his old bones work harder. Angered, Alan's mother attacks the old man, promising to break some of his old bones. However, the old man manages to disappear in thin air before she could do anything. The noise made during this alerted their neighbor, who came in looking for the time hermit. Alan's mother informs the guy that the time hermit had left. The guy says that him appearing means that the protective spell that she put on Alan has disappeared. Alan's mother thinks the million-year button has been used for him to appear again. The neighbor wonders how the time hermit found Alan to begin with. Alan's mother thinks that the time hermit has something against them, so he is trying to get on their way. However, she vows to not allow him to do what he wants this time. The next morning, Alan departs from his village back to Ms. Paula's dorm. A few days later, Alan had to go to the Thousand Blades Academy for an interview. Despite getting a scholarship, he had to pass through an interview. Even though it was a bit awkward, Alan thought he did just enough. And his teacher did tell him that he has never heard of anyone failing an interview there. So on the day of his result, Alan was mailed by the academy, telling him that he had passed. This was a moment of celebration for him. He informed this to Ms. Paula, who was also very happy for him, and decided to throw a huge feast to commemorate his admission. Alan also made sure to write a letter to his mother to tell her about it. After a while, he got ready to leave for the Thousand Blades Academy, and before going there, he bid farewell to Ms. Paula. He explained how he is eternally grateful to her for letting him stay when he didn't have any money. She woke him up in the morning to go to school, made delicious food for him, financially helped him, and gave him the best advice. So he thanked her for everything. This made Ms. Paula tear up a little. After this, Ms. Paula tells him that she doesn't care how big the academy is, he needs to go there and conquer that. So with that, Alan went off to his new destination. He ran through the farm roads and eventually arrived at the capital city, Orvis. Once there, he goes to the Thousand Blades dormitory, and he is shocked by just how big his room is. He then puts on the school uniform, and he can't help but admire how beautiful it is. He particularly likes the look of the shoulder crests the most. Following this, he takes his sword and gets ready to go to the academy for the first time, marking the beginning of his new life. As Alan walks to school, he runs into other students of the academy. They're new students just like him. Just then, he overhears a few students talking about the scholarship students and how they don't like them. After all, these students got to skip the tough entrance exams to get a direct entry. Alan understands that he will be in for a lot of bullying if his status is to be revealed, so he decides to keep his mouth shut and tell no one that he is a scholar student. He arrives at the academy and sits down for the yearly address of the new students. He hopes everything goes well, because he doesn't want to go through the hell he went through at his previous school. This is when Rhea Lasnote, the chairwoman, asks for the 3 scholarship students, Leah Visteria, Rose Valencia, and Alan Rodal, to step onto the stage. Alan feels deflated for being revealed like this. He hoped to have a normal and peaceful school life, but now his secret has been revealed, and he needs to come to everyone's attention. With his head down, he begins walking, to which Rose Valencia spots him and greets him. He is shocked to see Rose there, and asks her what she is doing. Rose tells him to first get on stage, and that they will talk later. The 3 scholarship students then step forward, as the chairwoman goes on about how the scholarship system is new, and that these students were handpicked by her, and that they are all great swordsmen. She then asks the students to introduce themselves. Beginning with Leah Visteria, she says that she is an exchange student from the Visteria Kingdom, and she practices the hegemonic style of swordcraft. Despite being royalty, she says that she is just another student here. Everyone is taken aback by the fact that such a talented princess was among the students. Following this, it was Rose Valencia's turn. She keeps it short and sweet as she states her name and tells them that she practices the cherry blossom style. Following this, it was Alan's turn, and he was a nervous wreck. He somehow shuddered his way into saying his name and that he comes from the Grand Swordcraft Academy. As for the style he follows, he reluctantly reveals that he is self-trained. This deflates everyone, as they start questioning how he got a scholarship. They start making fun of him and accuse him of bribery to get in here. The chairwoman was having a normal conversation with the scholarship students when Alan just ran off in humiliation. He could no longer handle it, as he blamed the chairwoman for sabotaging his debut. He was afraid of it being another instance of a bullying-filled school life. So, he makes his way to a secluded area and starts swinging his sword. However, he notices that he isn't feeling it. He trains for a while, but feels like today isn't the day for him, so he decides to wrap it up in the evening. Before going, he wanted to check out the bathhouse. He thinks that a proper bath could help make him feel good after quite a bad day. However, when he opens the door to the bathhouse, he sees Leah Wisteria in her underwear. Alan immediately closes the door and gets flustered, as he wondered what Leah was doing in the men's bathhouse. Leah then breaks open the door and smashes the wall in anger, as she challenges Alan to a duel. Alan is baffled, but he doesn't mind a duel. So he asks her for the stakes. Leah suggests that the loser of the duel must become the slave of the winner. Alan thinks that is too extreme and decides to apologize for seeing her in her undies, but this angers her even more. Eventually, Alan accepts to have the duel. Out of nowhere, Rhea Lasnote walks out, saying that she had heard everything that was said, so she is willing to be the referee during this duel of theirs. She wastes no time and drags them both to the duel arena for a showdown. As they both get ready for the battle, Leah brings out the black and white dragon of flames, Fafnir. She is surrounded by the flames of this dragon, as Alan is left dumbstruck. What Leah was using is called a soul attire, a special layer of aura that covers the swordsman and gives them extra power. It is something that only the greatest of talents can get through sheer hard work. Leah sees him standing there and tells him to activate his soul attire too. Alan tells her that he actually doesn't have a soul attire, which makes Leah laugh out loud. She couldn't believe that she was in a battle with a kid who doesn't even have a soul attire. However, she isn't one to hold back, so she activates her powers fully. Seeing this, Alan is overwhelmed. He comes to realize that contrasting to her elegant image, Leah is quite the monster on the battlefield. However, Alan doesn't know how to back down either, so he gets ready to fight as well. The battle begins with Alan outpacing Leah and going for the first attack. His attack shocks Leah, and she is pushed back by the force. However, Leah, even while being disbalanced, pulls out a special move to get out of danger. A separation is created between the two of them, as Alan understands that Leah's black flames will cause him trouble, so he must avoid it. However, he wants to continue attacking, this time mixing it in with a few feints. But this time, it is Leah who outspeeds him and goes for the attack. She uses the Dragonic Rage technique, but Alan manages to block it with one of his own moves. Leah is quite shocked by his abilities and asks Alan what move he had just used. Alan says that he isn't sure what she is referring to, but both of the moves he has used so far are developed by him. Hearing this, Leah understands why Rhea picked Alan to join the academy. He is someone who has developed a very good swordcraft technique over the years, so she acknowledges him as a good swordsman. However, she also wants to teach him that hard work can only go so far in the face of raw talent, so she launches another attack on Alan. She uses the hegemonic-style special move called the Hard Strike. Alan is startled and blocks the attack with an overhead crossblade, but Leah's sheer power makes it unable for him to keep the block. Leah notices that he is distracted, so she kicks Alan in the gut, knocking him back with her attack. Alan recovers from the blow, while analyzing how the soul attire's flames helped give Leah the extra push to make her attack more powerful. Leah then admits that in a battle of sheer swordsmanship, Alan is better than her. However, this is all the more reason why Alan should know that mastery over fundamentals will only get him so far against the power of the soul attire. Alan thinks that it is quite impressive how Leah can mix up her skills and soul attire so well. However, she isn't flawless. Her pure sword skills leave a lot to be desired, hence she over-relies on the soul attire. Which is why Alan thinks that he can exploit that. He had analyzed how Leah had been fighting in a conservative manner up until now. But now she knows that she can hurt Alan with the hard strike, so she will do it. Which is why he thinks it is about time he uses that special attack of his. As predicted, Leah charges in and performs the same hard strike skill again. But this time, Alan cuts through that using his second skill called Hazy Moon. He lands a quick and accurate slash to knock out Leah before she even realizes it. Rhea says that she expected this before calling off the fight, giving the W to Alan. Rhea praises Alan and says that she made the right decision by choosing him. However, Alan thinks that they should focus on Leah now because she is knocked out cold. Rhea says that is not an issue because Leah is a strong girl. Soon enough, Leah does wake up, but she is oblivious as to what had happened. When she remembers what happened, she asks for an explanation, questioning the strike Alan had landed. Alan says it is a preset strike, to which Leah says that she doesn't get it. Alan says that it is when he predicts the path his opponent is going to take and plans a particular attack for that. So, when the opponent enters the path, the attack gets activated automatically. It's hard to land, but when it connects, it is game over. Leah is disheartened, as she refuses to accept the result and calls it cheating. Rhea then brings up the stakes they decided before the fight. Leah says that she doesn't remember, before she remembers that the loser must become a slave for the winner, and this flusters her. She tries to talk her way out of it, saying she didn't mean it literally, but figuratively instead. Rhea mentions that because there was no official paperwork behind the duel, she is willing to turn a blind eye to it. Alan is relieved by this because he didn't want a princess girl being his slave all of a sudden. But Rhea keeps teasing Leah, asking if she will be able to live without keeping a promise. This confuses Leah, who asks her what she exactly means. Rhea talks about how Leah, the princess of the Vestiria kingdom, a prodigy, just lost a battle that was set up by her and had her own reputation at stake. Not only that, but she is now refusing to follow up on the promise she made, and is ready to act like the duel never happened. However, Rhea is fine with it if Leah is fine with it as well. This puts Leah in a lot of distress, while Alan understood that Rhea was quite a character. She is someone who he needs to stay away from. Under tons of pressure, Leah finally gives in and decides to accept the terms that she put up for the duel. Rhea tells her to not act as if Rhea forced her into this. She needs to do it on her own accord, either become his slave properly and pretend like this never happened and lose a part of her dignity. Leah, in anger, finally turns around and bows down to Alan. She states that she is not worthy of him, but she will still serve him as his slave and refers to him as master. And just like that, a princess had become a slave for a normal kid. But things get more awkward when Alan is shifted into Leah's room. This was also done by Rhea, who decides to get Alan fully shifted into Leah's room, because as a slave, Leah should always serve her master with the utmost priority. And hence why Alan was in the same room as Leah. He was going to live under the same roof as the princess. It made him wonder how the Vestiria kingdom would react if they found out about this. Seeing how embarrassed Leah was, Alan was confused as to what was even happening. Meanwhile, Rhea last note felt the faces Leah was making were quite funny. But on a more serious note, she was glad to see how the 3 exchange students have come along, which is why she thinks that the 3 of them will be the perfect fit to represent the Thousand Blades Academy at the Elite 5 Holy Festival. Following this, Alan thinks about how despite getting into his dream academy, things aren't going as smoothly as expected, and currently he was caught up in a big problem. Because Leah Vestiria was in front of him in nothing but a short towel. An hour before this, we see the tension being high as usual between the two. Alan doesn't want this to continue, and wonders why Rhea had chosen this. He does understand her point of view a bit, as she only enforced the normal rules and nothing more. After all, in the art of swordsmanship, duels are sacred. If someone loses a duel, they must fulfill the stakes that were put up before. Even Dodriel apologized to him after their duel. So, he doesn't think that someone like Leah will back down. But his male instincts were slowly kicking in, as he couldn't help but notice the tear on her shirt around the breast area. He understands that this must have been because of the duel, but he can't bring himself to tell her to cover up. Alan also looks around to check out her room, which was quite modest for a princess, yet looked how one would expect the room of a girl her age to look like. Leah notices this, and asks Alan to not check her room out, as it was quite creepy. Alan obliges. He also took this little moment of talk as an opening to tell her about the tear on her shirt. He starts taking his jacket off, which gives Leah the chills, as she thought that he was off to doing something indecent. But instead, Alan just gave her the jacket, telling her to cover up. Leah got confused by this, So Alan tells her about the tear on her shirt caused during the duel. Flustered, Leah quickly covers up. Alan then tries to talk with Leah, and she responds to him by calling him master. Alan tells her not to do that because it was very awkward. However, Leah told him that she has her own pride as a swordsman, so she must follow the rules. Alan appreciates her headstrong nature, so to make it work, he orders Leah to drop the slave behavior and act normally. Leah is opposed to this, but Alan tells her that she must follow his orders no matter what. Leah eventually agrees but tells him to drop the polite way of talking as well. Alan obliges, and brings up how it was quite the rough first day for them. Leah tells him that it is his fault for it to be like this. Alan thinks that he does deserve some blame for charging in the room, but she is more to blame for entering the men's bathhouse. Leah denies it, saying she was surely in the women's bathhouse, but the two come to deduce that it must have been Rhea who set them both up to have this altercation. They wonder why she did it, and Alan goes to call her a cruel woman. Following this, they talk and argue for a bit. After a while, Leah mentions how it is quite late, and that they should set up the beds. Alan tells her to go take a bath first, as he waits outside. Leah tells him that he should have said this in a less suggestive way, which confuses Alan, as he didn't mean to suggest anything. Leah then goes inside to take a shower, but tells Alan that she will finish him if he tries to peep. As she goes inside to change, Alan decides to do some freehand workout. Leah checks if the curtains were see-through or not, before stripping down and getting in the shower. She felt quite refreshed by it, but she also thought Alan was a weird guy. After all, he has her as a slave, yet has not tried to touch her even once. Not that she wants him to do that, but she is quite confident about her looks, so it is a bit confusing. She also thinks that Alan doesn't look bad, but as her father told her, all men are wolves, so she should keep her guard up. After all, he can strike any time. After being done with the bath, Leah comes out and realizes that she didn't bring a change of clothes. She could have asked Alan to do it for her if it was just pajamas, but she also needs her underwear. So, she decides to wrap around the short towel to her body and look for it herself. She walks out hesitantly, as Alan gets a look at her attractive body while doing push-ups. Seeing her makes him flip out immediately and gets stunned by her. Leah tells him about how she came to get clothes and that it is nothing big. She then goes inside her room, while telling him to not enter without her permission. Alan then goes to take a bath. Once inside her room, Leah thought the reaction was quite cute, and that he seemed really innocent. She goes as far as to call her an herbivore male, but she quickly snaps back into being her normal self. She thinks he is a fraud, who is putting up an act, and that he will show his true predatory behavior during bedtime. The worst part being that she can't refuse him because she is his slave. So, she needs to be prepared for the worst. After a while, Leah gets out of her room to see Alan was already out, and understands that he is the kind of guy who doesn't take long to shower. She then asks him if he wants some water, before drinking water together with him. After this, they brush together in the cramped place. After this, they go to the bedroom. This is when Alan calls out to Leah, saying he is about to sleep. Leah thought this was where he was going to ask for sexual favors. She thought this was going to be her first time, without her consent nonetheless. But turns out, Alan just wanted to sleep on the floor, while she sleeps on the bed. Leah was shocked by how he wasn't even thinking about something like that, and wondered if she was the one with the dirty mind. Despite that, Leah tells him to not sleep on the floor and join her on the bed, because it'll be bad to have the master sleep on the floor, while the slave sleeps on the bed. Alan agrees to join her, and they end up sleeping on the same bed, under the same blanket. They both awkwardly greet each other good night, before Alan sleeps. Leah, however, felt confused by how he is such a nice guy. She decides to take advantage of his sleeping, and starts pulling his cheeks. However, he doesn't wake up. After a while, she finally backs down, convinced he is really nice and innocent, and that he is quite hot too. But she quickly asks herself why she was thinking like that. Eventually, Leah also falls asleep. The next day, all the students go to school for their first proper day. Alan and Leah get along quite well, as Leah tells him about the food in her country, and that she will show him a particular restaurant when they get the chance. Alan feels assured seeing Leah so friendly, assuming that a proper night's sleep did wonders. Once inside, Lia is approached by other girls, and she talks to them with elegance and grace. Alan understands that she really is a princess, but wonders where the bratty side of her comes from. Alan decides to let Lia have her girl talk with others, as he goes to sit down somewhere. He was free to pick his seat, and ends up seeing a couple of guys talking about seeing a giant woman yesterday. So he decides to go say them hi. However, they give him the cold shoulder and ignore him in disgust. Alan gets that this is caused by the horrendous introduction from yesterday, but chooses to ignore it. Lia then walks up to those same guys, and they treat her with respect and attention, making Alan think of them as hypocrites. However, Lia was there to point out how they ignored Alan saying hi, and asked if their conversation was so important for them to ignore him. The guys, clearly guilty, make an excuse of not hearing him, calling his voice weak. But Lia makes it clear that she hates the kind of people who act like this, and tells them to never talk to her again. The guys are stunned, while the girls wonder why Lia was defending the cheater who got in through bribing. Alan apologizes to Lia for what happened, but Lia tells him that she just did it because she feels that way. After this, Rose Valencia comes to the classroom, totally sleepy, with her hair and uniform being a mess. She comes down and sits in front of Lia and Alan, greeting Alan more enthusiastically than Lia. Alan points out her messy hair and asks if she needs assistance with that, but Rose says that it'll eventually come into place thanks to gravity. Following this, the chairwoman, Rhea Lastnote, enters the classroom. Everyone was a bit confused as to why she was there, but she announces that she will be the homeroom teacher for their class. Alan wasn't pleased by this because he knows her nature. After some talking, Rhea Lastnote brings up the Elite 5 Holy Festival, where the 5 elite academies select their 3 best students and put them into competition against each other. Everyone is understandably hyped about it, as it is their moments to shine. However, Rhea says that unlike past years, where they would wait for physical test results to come out before picking a team, they've already decided their representatives for this year. This was a bummer for the students, and Alan understood where this was heading and didn't like it one bit. Rhea then states that their 3 participants for the festival will be Lia Visteria, Rose Valencia, and Alan Rodal. This angers all of the students, and one of the guys who ignored Alan stands up to protest. He says that he understands the selection of Lia and Rose, as they are undeniably better than the rest at the moment. However, he doesn't support the selection of Alan Rodal, a good-for-nothing self-taught swordsman who came from a nothing school from a nothing place. So he demands that they reconsider his selection. Alan feels bad because of this and wondered why he was being hated so much. Rhea hears this, calls out to Alan, and then makes fun of him for being so hated. This pisses off Alan, but he knows that he can't show temper and give her the pleasure of successfully teasing her, so he ignores her. Rhea tells Alan that he nearly isn't as fun to tease as Lia. After this, Alan walks up to Rhea and tells her that he doesn't want to participate in such a festival, because it is the place where students show off what they learned from their school of style. However, Alan wasn't allowed into any style school at the Grand Swordcraft Academy, so he wants to bow out of this one. Rhea hears him out and decides to tell it to everyone. However, being the prankster she is, she instead tells the 3 students who ignored him that Alan called them incompetent and not on his level. So he challenges them to a 3-on-1 duel right then and there. This makes the trio irate, as they vow to teach Alan a lesson. Alan tries to explain that Rhea made it up, but Rhea doubles down and says that she likes to see the confidence on Alan. This made Alan want to punch her in the face, but alas, he was dragged into the duel arena for the 2nd consecutive day. Once there, one of the trio stepped forward and declared that he will be taking out Alan by himself. This was good for Alan, as it saved him the effort of going 3-on-1, so he tells him to bring it on. The guy wastes no time to charge at Alan. Seeing his speed and grip, Alan guesses he is quite good technically. But as he is about to use his iron style move, Alan picks out his weak footwork and does a leg sweep to knock him down. He then points the sword to the guy's neck, claiming victory. However, Rhea disapproves of it because it is supposed to be a 3-on-1 and tells them to do it the proper way. She somehow manages to piss off Alan more. Meanwhile, the guy was attended to by his 2 friends, who asked him how he went down so easily. He informs his friends that Alan isn't as bad as they thought, and that they need to take him seriously. So, the three of them surround Alan, waiting for him to attack first so that the other two can pounce. Alan didn't want this at all, but he has to, so he charges at the first guy with supersonic speed. He uses the 8-crow slash technique that took out Rose on his opponent, before others can react. His opponent tries to use Cloud-style attack himself, but succumbs to Alan. The other one finally makes a move on Alan, trying to attack him with his iron style like earlier, but he is too slow, and Alan manages to take him out with one simple strike. However, Alan got too distracted, and this allowed the third and final guy to blindside him and use the moon style on Alan. Alan realizes that he won't be able to dodge this attack, even if he wanted to, but because his opponent was in his range, he pulls off the hazy moon move that defeated Leah and takes him out. Just like that, Alan had won over each and everyone in the class, and now they wanted him to teach them. Rose and Leah also went up to Alan, with Rose asking him about the final move. Alan explains the hazy moon to her, which impresses Rose, as Leah adds that she still thinks it is unfair. Just then, the fallen opponent were struggling to get up, so Alan walks up to them to offer them help. However, he wonders if they will feel disrespected and fight again. However, they're all very sportsmanlike and take his hand. They then apologize to Alan in turns, saying sorry for having misjudged him. Alan tells them it is no big deal. He understands why they feel antagonized by him. After all, they trained hard to get in while Alan was just picked directly. The guys then tell Alan that he is not only the more skilled individual but also the better man, and call him the perfect representative for them. They strike up a respectful friendship. Rhea asks if everyone is okay with Alan's selection now, and they unanimously say yes. Alan still asked if it is really okay, considering there are other classes in their year too. But the students tell him that it is okay because they're class 1A, and the classes are arranged based on grades, so they're better than the other classes, which means that whatever decision they make is going to be accepted. Alan breathes a sigh of relief, before Rhea once again announces that the 3 representatives for Thousand Blades at the Elite 5 Holy Festival will be Leah Visteria, Rose Valencia, and Alan Rodal, to everyone's happiness. The next day, they make students were out in the gymnasium wearing light gym clothes, feeling chilly. Alan thought the clothing was too light for a very early morning in April. However, the other students tell him to wait for the girls. The girls walk out in the same shirts, but with much shorter pants. The guys tell Alan that it is a ritual among the 5 elite schools that the girls need to wear bloomers for their gym clothes bottom, although they weren't clearly pleased about it because of the weather. The guys then pray to the elite schools, thanking them for having girls wear such clothes, which Alan found weird. Following this, Leah Visteria comes up to Alan and asks him how she is looking. Alan didn't know how to respond or where to look at, to be honest. However, he remembers Miss Paula telling him that if a girl asks this question, he should respond by telling them that they look great. Alan does just that, and it makes Leah very happy, and she runs off to the other girls to talk about it. Soon after, Rose Valencia also walks up to Alan and asks him the same question. Just like Leah, he answers the same to her, which makes Rose very happy, and she goes to her friends and does the same. This makes Alan wonder if they're performing some sort of activity. Just then, Rhea Lastnote shows up to test the class. Her loud voice was screechingly loud and annoying, and Alan took that as her being a morning person. Rhea Lastnote tells the students that they will be doing a physical test now, which will help the academy assess them better. She talks about 3 particular tests: the draw-strike test, the Tenfo test, and the multi-strike test. She explains the draw-strike test first, where the student will have to unsheathe their swords and cut down a piece of wood. The school will be tracking the amount of time they need to do all of that. An old man who has been doing this job for 50 years will be tracking the time, so she asks for the students to treat him with respect. And so, Rhea Lastnote announces the beginning of the physical tests.